United Way of Union County. I'd like to thank you all for coming out this morning to share with us the information from our community needs assessment. In fall 2012, our United Way worked with Rutgers University Family Institute to commission to do a study for us on community issues and needs. The focus of our study primarily looked at issues that were impacting children and families. And I want to acknowledge up front that, in most traditional community needs assessment, it's a very holistic approach, and there's a lot of information around a lot of different demographics. But very specifically, United Way's been focusing on issues impacting families since 2008. We wanted to get a sense first of what the community conditions were as it pertains to that population. And also, we asked Rutgers to really talk to folks in our community to see how well our work is being acknowledged. So they did some work for us to kind of help us understand that we needed to do increase our opportunities to talk to folks about issues impacting families. So this is our first time to bring folks together to share the information. We've got a great group of folks panelists that will discuss their responses to the information and also share with us some information about their work and how they see families and some of the challenges facing families in communities like Union County. Again, I want to thank you for coming out. This is, we hope will be very informative, but for us, it's the beginning of a conversation that we would like to have in terms of the issues impacting families in Union County, and moreover, what we can all begin to do collectively to address those issues facing families. So I appreciate you folks taking up all your time, and not to spend a lot of time with the mic. I do like to call a few folks to say some of their remarks. I'd like to start with people at once.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for coming to participate with United Way. I just want to say, Union County, as all of New Jersey and indeed all of the country, have faced some really serious challenges in recent years, but not good. I think things are getting a little bit better. We have a wonderful community of human service and social service agencies here in Union County. I've been the liaison for our Human Services Advisory Council for a number of years, and I see many of our participants in that council here. Mr. Horn was the chairman of the council for 2 years and led us very well. Our current chairman is Ms. Pamela Capassi, who is here with us. And as I said, we have faced some difficult times. I am proud of the people that I work with, both in the county and other government agencies, as well as our private nonprofits, who, no matter what happens, manage to kind of juggle things, re-energize, and face what needs to be done, and provide services for our children and families, people in need in Union County. So I just want to thank all of you for being here. Look forward to hearing the new information that will be presented so that we can continue to do our jobs better. And thanks again. Look forward to all the good work that you're doing. Thank you.
I really do want to thank people at Wallace for all of her support, and all of the Freeholder Board for their support of families in Union County. Freeholder has been an advocate for human services and delivery in our community since I've been here, probably I'm sure beyond before that. I think she has very good and passionate work, so thank you for all you do. I would also love at this time like to call Councilwoman Perkins from the City of Elizabeth to make some remarks.
Good morning, and thank you, Jim. I really want to thank the United Way of Union County for providing us with this vital information. As move forward in the 21st century, there will be change. And I'm glad that Jim, under his leadership, realized that that change should be in the form of a partnership, that we must work together to better the lives of the residents, not only in the city of Elizabeth, who I'm quite partial to, but also throughout the entire county. This assessment is well in depth. It's full of information and facts that we can use as we continue to serve as residents throughout Union County. Education is key. Education is key to wealth. Education is key to health. So Jim understands. He understands that we must educate our residents throughout this county to make sure that they get the vital support that they need. Strengthening families is a must. So he's right on target. And again, let's give him a hand. Because it takes a lot to develop and make an assessment and then share it. Most of the times we do these things and we put them on the shelf. We put them on the shelf. But he understands and has a vision for people and families to say, we must share this information. This information is so important. And information is key to turning people's lives around. So on behalf of the city of Elizabeth, in the absence of Mayor J. Christian Bolvich and my council colleagues, I have another councilman here from the city of Elizabeth, Councilman Carlos Torres. Please stand. He serves the first ward of our city. And if anybody knows the demographics in the city of Elizabeth, the first ward is going through a lot of transition. So they need to definitely partnership with people who understand the need to move that part of our city forward. So again, to all of you, have a great time, have a great day, and remember to share. And remember to develop partnerships for change, not just for politics. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I would also like to acknowledge Councilwoman as a member of the United Way Board of Directors, and there are some members of our board here that actually closest stand who would be recognized. United Way Board members? Some of you. United Way has, we really do believe in strong partnerships, and as we thought through our work with strengthening families, have reached out to partner with the nonprofit community as well as local, county, and state government. I'd like to acknowledge one of our very strong partners in this work in trying to help us think through a countywide strategy, and that has been the Department of Human Services. And I can call on Karen Dismer, some of ours from the department.
Thank you, Jim. I'd like to thank Jim for inviting me to come and give some opening remarks to you today. I've had the opportunity to look at an advanced copy of the needs assessment that we'll be discussing today, and what I've said to many people in the room already this morning is at the very least it's provocative. It is an updated tool that we have at our disposal amongst many tools that we use as resources in planning for the needs in our community. And it shows some demographic shifts that I think that we are challenged to address. It talks about needs certainly in some critical communities, but I also feel that some of the needs that are addressed in this assessment are challenges in other communities as well. Our role in county government is to address the needs in 21 municipalities, and it's a challenge with the resources that we have at our disposal now. In addition, I think that we have a responsibility to make some decisions in the context of changing policies at the federal and state level. All of us know now that there's a real shift in federal focus. We're dealing with the sequester, but in addition to that, we have the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. And there's some changes that the state of New Jersey is making with regard to how services are delivered, particularly to the lower income members of our society. So we can't plan in a vacuum, And I think one of the things that Rutgers University has done here is to talk to some of us in the field, as well as strong advocates, about what some of those challenges are. So this is a tool for moving forward. I think you're going to hear something about a model called Family Success Centers. Some of you in the community are working in those Family Success Centers. One of the things we like about that model is that it truly is a partnership of a traditional human service delivery system and grassroots approach for getting into a local community and having that community define what its needs are. In a time when the resources are stretched and these policy changes sometimes adversely impact what we'd like to do, I think that the only way that we can move forward is through a strong partnership with people in local communities as well as traditional service providers. Many of those are nonprofit agencies. Some of them are run by government at both the state and the local, county, and municipal levels. So my challenge in human services for Union County government is to provide some leadership in how do we pull those partners together. And United Way has been one of those partners that we've worked closely with, certainly since Mr. Horn has joined our county, and long before that, under his predecessors. I encourage you to ask questions today as we move forward. And on the behalf of the Board of Chosen Freeholders, the county manager, who was here briefly and unfortunately had to do county business and was pulled out, and the Director of Human Services, Frank Guzzo, who's under the weather today, or he'd be giving these remarks, so he owes me. I'd like to welcome you all and look forward to an engaging discussion today. Thank you.
Okay, here we go. I'd like to now introduce Dr. Donna Van Alst from Rutgers University to walk us through the PowerPoint of the
until about 3 seconds ago. I can't stand on my toes the whole time, but I'll try to see you. I'm here today to provide a general overview and an introduction to the findings from the needs assessment conducted with the United Way of Greater Union County. I'm going to talk specifically about some of the key trends that we identified in demographics, in education, in income, and in health. I'm also going to introduce the communities of concern that the United Way has designated for this time moving forward. This is an update of the communities of concern that were identified with their 2007 needs assessment activities. And then finally, I'm going to make some recommendations about moving forward, some ideas which will be followed up by the panelists in that part of the presentation. So to get started, this effort was funded by the Nicholson Foundation, and the goal was really to identify some emerging health and human service needs in the area served by the United Way. And they wanted to remind everyone that the United Way serves not only Union County, but also North Plainfield and South Plainfield in neighboring Middlesex and Somerset counties. So all of the information on those two municipalities are also included in the needs assessment presentation. The goal was not just to understand emerging needs, but to also understand differences between the constituent communities. And there are many, which is probably not a surprise to those of you working in the field. So it's an update of the 2007 Community Needs Assessment Report, and our primary tools were archival data analysis. So we looked at census data, we looked at the most recent data available from the American Community Survey, and we supplemented with that with a variety of state and local data sources. We also conducted focus groups, and I've seen many familiar faces from those efforts with county employees, with human service leaders, with residents to further understand emerging needs in the communities. So to get started with the archival data, as I said, it largely comes from the U.S. Census, which was last updated, of course, in 2010, supplemented by the American Community Survey, as well as some state data. And we focused on the areas of demographics, as well as United Way's 3 primary focus areas, which are education, income, and health. So let's start with demographics. The picture in demographics I thought was particularly interesting, and what it shows is that Union County has really become a much more diverse place since 2010. Since 2000. The Hispanic or Latino populations increased more than 40% during those 10 years, an addition of about 44,000 Hispanic or Latino residents. During the same time period, the white populations decreased slightly, and there have also been moderate increases in both the Asian and African descent populations. In 2010, 30% of Union County residents were foreign born, and 42% were speaking a language other than English at home. One of the interesting things to note about the changing demographics, however, is they're not evenly dispersed across the entire county. This is a map using census data. It's Union County plus South Plainfield as well as North Plainfield. And it stretches, of course, from Elizabeth on the far eastern end all the way over to North Plainfield and Plainfield on the western end. This is a map showing where the Hispanic and Latino population was located during the 2010 census. The darkest areas show communities, neighborhoods, where more than 50% of residents were of Hispanic or Latino ethnicity. The lightest areas, more toward the center of the county, are areas where the Latino population is under 5%. So you see some pretty significant differences. Similarly, this map is highlighting the white population in Union County. The darkest areas in the center are areas where the white population exceeds 90% of all residents. The lightest areas in this case show a white population that's less than 35%. So again, you see a pattern emerging. The African American population in Union County, again, tends to be very much centered on the eastern section communities, as well as the North Plainfield area, with a few other areas where there's 10 to 20% African American community mixed in. And then finally, the Asian population, and the important thing to remember when you're viewing this map is that the darkest areas show an Asian population that exceeds 8%. Right. So you'll see that primarily up in the Summit, New Providence, Berkeley Heights area, a little bit in Scotch Plains, and over in Union and Roselle Park. The lightest colors show the communities, the neighborhoods with the lowest percentage of Asian residents. All right, so while the demographics have changed significantly, the changes aren't evenly distributed across the county. Nonetheless, it has a number of really important implications for how we deliver human services. The first is we really need to think about making sure that our services are culturally competent, that they're delivered by bilingual staff, and we can't always assume that the bilingual staff that we need is Spanish speaking. There are probably other languages that our staff need to be able to speak. We need to think about how we're going to creatively outreach to these diverse populations. Those of you who are working in the field already know that people have different ways of asking for help, seeking help, finding out about help. We need to acknowledge that, and we need to incorporate those different strategies into our outreach activities. We also need to just be well aware that all of these changes, all of these requirements have significant implications for the cost of providing human services. It requires hiring different types of staff. It requires perhaps changing traditional operating hours. It just requires a different level of outreach to get people there to make services accessible. I think the other real implication here for the human services community is making sure that we pay attention to disparities that occur based on race and ethnicity. We need to pay attention to the different experiences that different populations living in Union County have, and think about targeting services as specific needs indicate. The second area that we explored was education. And our findings, we have three main findings in this area. The first is that there is a significant unmet need for affordable, quality, early care and education programs. These are the programs that provide a safe place for children to go while their parents are working. And research has also shown that they provide an important place for children to get a good start in life. So they're important in a number of different ways. In Union County, about 65% of all children between the ages of birth and 5 require some sort of care while their parents work. Nonetheless, the number of accredited and licensed daycare slots that are available exceed that demand by, we have 500 fewer slots than we need here in the county. The cost of care is particularly a burden, particularly for parents of infants. A single working mother who works 40 hours a week at minimum wage would spend somewhere between 52 and 81% of her pre-tax income on child care expenses. 52 to 81%. It's almost unimaginable. In 2010, there were about 351 children in Union County waiting for subsidized care slots. There's also a great need for affordable before school, after school, and summer care programs for children in Union County. So these are programs that serve school-age children, provide care for them, meals, before school starts, after school starts, as well as summer programs. And again, these serve multiple functions. They provide parents with a safe place to leave their children while they're at work. They have to leave early, they have to come home later, and while they're working in the summer. They also provide a great opportunity for enrichment, which is really important to children's educational experiences. The summer programs that combine academic components with recreational components have historically been shown to be effective in making sure children don't lose the education that they gained during the school year. They can come back to school in September without having lost knowledge or skills. The third area that came up as a concern or need in the education domain focused on educational disparities. Union County is really quite interesting because it has some of the best school districts in the state, and it also has some school districts that face significant challenges. The result is really huge disparities in the educational experiences and achievements of children in Union County. So whether you're looking at 4th grade or 8th grade NJS scores, whether you're looking at high school proficiency exam results, whether you're looking at graduation rates, dropout rates, the experiences for children in Union County are very different depending on where they live and where they're educated. From the focus groups that we held around education, a number of different ideas also emerged. The first was that children really need to leave school with a clear plan for what they want to do in the future. And many kids who decide to go on to higher education clearly leave high school with a plan. The particular area of concern is young people who choose not to go for higher education, and making sure that they wake up the day after graduation with a plan for what they're going to do with their lives. They need to be able to live as independent, self-sufficient adults, and we need to make sure that we've done the planning before they leave school to ensure that that happens. The people who participated in our focus groups were also concerned about improving the educational experiences in some of those districts with challenges. Reducing educational disparities, a particular concern among residents was reducing the dropout rates. in some of the communities with rates that far exceed the state average. Again, we heard about the need for early care and education, both full-time care for the very youngest children, as well as wraparound programs for school-age children, and in particular, summer programs. Again, there was a sense among our participants that expanding these types of activities really works not only to provide a safe place for children to be when their parents are at work, but also to help reduce some of those disparities in education by including an enrichment component. And then finally, education for adults is also identified as an important issue. And in this case, there was particular concern about making sure people who are not native English speakers had an opportunity to learn the language, and interest in providing literacy skills, which would help people gain and continue employment, and take advantages of opportunities for improvements in their employment status, and also job training for adults that matches the needs of the employing community. So the implications here seemed fairly clear to us. First, there needs to be an expansion of early care and education programs. There's a significant unmet need in general. The unmet need among the lowest income populations is particularly exacerbated, particularly high. There's a need for dual focus programs, early care programs that provide before school and after school care, as well as summer enrichment programs, and high school dropout prevention programs. When we were looking at the variety of data that was available to assess the financial well-being of Union County residents, a couple things became quite obvious. The first is that the sustained economic downturn, combined with the very high cost of living in Union County, was leading to stressed families along the entire income spectrum. So it is something that has been a concern, of course, for the lowest income families, but also for families who've traditionally been protected from some of the economic fluctuations that have happened in the past. What we found is that the median household income in Union County grew slower than the inflation rate between 2000 and 2010. We had a couple of periods where the median household income actually declined. And in 2010, the median household income for people living in Union County was still lower than the high, which happened in 2007. So as of 2010, Union County families had not really regained their financial footing. The poverty rate in 2010 among Union County families is about 11.1%, with significant variation depending upon the municipality in which they live. And about 24.5% of people were living in true poverty, which is defined as 200% of the federal poverty. Housing is also a significant burden for people living in Union County. The median house price in Union County in 2010 was almost $400,000, 11% higher than the state average. The median value of household housing between 2000 and 2010 increased by 110%. All right, so that's from 2000 to 2010. So it does take into consideration some of the decline in the housing market that happened after 2007. But still 110% increase is phenomenal. Renters are equally burdened. In 2009, which is the most recent data that we were able to get, almost 55% of renters in Union County were defined as being cost burdened, which means that they spend more than 30% of their monthly income on rental expenses. So housing is a significant expense. There are also some significant differences, as I mentioned, in income between the municipalities served by the United Way. What you'll see here is it's quite significant. Berkeley Heights had the highest median household income at just almost $141,000 a year. It's almost $100,000 higher than the median household income in Elizabeth. couple of indicators that affect household wealth. We know that being raised in a single mother-headed household is a prime risk factor for growing up poor. This map shows where those single mother-headed households are. The darkest areas, more than 35% of the households are headed by a single female. Again, they're clustered on the far eastern border of the county, as well as over here in the North Plainfield and Plainfield area. But they're interspersed in between. One of the things that's particularly interesting is, of course, Route 28, which bisects the entire county, is sort of that line. And you see there's a lot of apartments, there's a lot of rental properties in those areas, and clearly there are more single mother-headed households there. This shows where communities where owners occupy their housing. So the darkest community, more than 90% of the housing stock in those communities is occupied by the owner. The lighter communities, under 25%. So that's where our renters are living. So the renters are in the communities that are lighter, the neighborhoods that are lighter. The owners are in the neighborhoods that are more darkly colored. From the focus groups that we held, we also identified a couple of issues related to income among families in Union County. The first is that there's a huge need to create jobs that offer a living wage, sick time, health care benefits. And there's also a huge need to make sure that people who live here have the skills they need to fill those jobs. So job creation and a good match with job skills were what we heard consistently in the focus groups. There's a need for affordable housing, tax relief for homeowners, and a whole variety of services that could provide a buffer between families and the economic challenges that they're facing. You see stress around parenting, stress around caretaking, stress in interpersonal relationships, that is not necessarily 100% caused by financial challenges, but certainly gets exacerbated by the lack of economic opportunities within a family. We found a strong need to make sure that young people again graduate from high school and do so with a plan for how they're going to become independent, self-sufficient adults in their own lives moving forward. And then finally, an interest in providing comprehensive services to support families that are struggling with multiple issues. One of the things that we heard, whether it was from folks working in county government, whether it was from executive directors, whether it was from residents, is that there's a population in Union County that faces many, many different challenges. They face challenges with mental health, they face financial challenges, they face challenges with educating their children, they face challenges with their children, they face challenges with transportation and housing. And that is a population that really needs to be targeted in some way that's holistic, some way that enables all of those problems to be addressed in one stop, in a uniform, consistent manner. Some of the implications from these findings, of course, are financial challenges are really what's driving what's going on with households in Union County right now, regardless of income level. There's a huge need for informal supports. Some folks have talked already a little bit about the family success centers and other family-centered community change models as being particularly effective in meeting these needs. Everyone doesn't necessarily need a program. They do need a place to go to get different pieces of help or support as the need arises. And then finally, I need to develop some real innovative wraparound services for working poor families to make sure that not only are they able to get to their jobs, are they able to provide care for children while they're working, and is there a way to provide some emergency financial assistance as unexpected needs come? One of the stories that really stuck with me was hearing about a man who needed $20 $20 to get his uniform out of the dry cleaner so that he could go to work. And I think for many of us in the room, it's hard to imagine not being able to come up with $20. But for some families in Union County, that's really a stumbling block. And so what we're saying here is we need to find ways to prevent not having that $20 to be able to get your uniform out of the dry cleaner from turning into losing your job and sliding into a cycle of poverty that's much harder to get out of. Finally, we looked at some health data. And what we found here were two areas of interest. The first was some disparities in birth outcomes and prenatal care among families in Union County, and then also growing concerns, particularly through the focus groups, about violence, drugs, and other quality of life issues. Sorry, I went a little bit too fast there. So in prenatal care, there are some communities in Union County where barely half of the women who are pregnant and expecting are receiving early prenatal care services. There's some variations in low birth weight rates, children who are born under 5.5 pounds. And the concerns about violence were very, very mixed community by community. There are some communities with higher rates of child maltreatment reports and substantiations. And there's also some significant variation from community to community in rates of violent and nonviolent crime. The focus groups really helped us to understand this information, I think, a little bit better. They were particularly concerned about making sure that children had positive activities that they could participate in as alternatives to becoming involved in all of the things that we all want them to be involved in: gangs, violence, drugs. Some of the residents in particular, living in communities, have concerns about quality of life issues. There's an interest in serving and focusing health efforts on high-risk populations. And those are typically people with mental illness, people with chronic health conditions, people with disabilities. And also thinking about ways to provide preventive care for people who have no health insurance, or to help them with co-pays so that they can access health insurance. Increasing access to some of the food and nutrition programs that are available to support low and middle income families, such as SNAP, school breakfast programs, school lunch programs, as well as expanding mental health services. We heard consistently about unmet needs, long wait times for mental health services throughout the county. The implications here, clearly point to finding new ways to partner with hospitals and community health centers to improve prenatal care for women who are expecting, providing more opportunities for youth to be involved in positive activities before school, after school, and particularly in the summer, and creating collaborations among police, community leaders, and concerned residents to address quality of life issues in specific communities. So having presented a very brief overview of the data that's provided in the book, I wanted to move on to talk a little bit about the communities of concern. So what we did is we considered the demographic information, we considered the key findings in the areas of education, income, and health that contribute to disparities. And we found that there are really three trends. There are a couple of communities where there are entrenched challenges. And I guess these are the communities that no one would be surprised to see on the list of communities of concern. There are a number of communities with emerging needs. These tend to be related to the financial challenges that families have been facing over an extended period of time now. And then there seems to be a whole set of communities that seem to be holding their own. In general, with a little bit of variation, their indicators generally look quite good. So I wanted to start by showing you this map. And what we did is we combined several different indicators of community well-being, things like the percentage of single mother-headed households, the percentage of owner-occupied housing, into a single variable, and we mapped it across neighborhoods in Union County, as well as South Plainfield and North Plainfield. The darker the green color, the healthier the community. The darker the red color, the less healthy the community. All right, so this is an amalgamation of multiple indicators into a single variable. So what you see here is some areas far to the west, some areas far to the east that clearly have significant needs across multiple domains. You also see some areas primarily in the center of the county that are doing fairly well. Nonetheless, I think it's important to know to be cognizant that there are very few communities here that are consistently one color. You know, there's spots and differences in neighborhoods within these communities. Look like at a community like Westfield, right here. You know, we range from the darkest greens in some neighborhoods to red in that area, right near Route 28, near the train line. So there's diversity within municipalities as well as diversity within the county. So this is the list of community concerns. The United Way is including both of the entrenched challenged communities as well as the emerging needs communities on their list of community concerns for 2012. North Plainfield, Roselle Park, and one block group in Summit are the new additions. Let me go back and show you that particular block group because we were kind of surprised. It's that little red, dark red block group up there in Summit. And it consistently looked different. If you browse through the maps that are included in the booklet, you'll see that it pretty much stands out from the rest of the Summit on every map. So the United Way has decided to include that as an area of focus for its efforts moving forward. So finally, to finish off with some general recommendations, clearly, the indicators, the focus groups point to a tremendous need for early childhood success. Making sure that children have access to high quality, affordable, early care and education programs is something that residents have told us that they need. There is clearly unmet need in that area, according to program statistics, and the research shows that those programs are very effective in helping children get a good start in life. A second area, thinking about slightly older children, is in promoting positive youth development, making sure children have access to activities, programs, services that help them maintain that good start, that help them have a way to dedicate their energies in a positive area, take school seriously, and leave school with a plan for their future. There is an interest in supporting youth, particularly vulnerable youth, particularly young people who are involved in some of our traditional social service systems, juvenile justice, child welfare, as they make that transition into adulthood. And that is clearly a challenging time in the lives of many young people, and the general consensus is that we need to do a better job of helping them make that leap into adulthood. Finally, there needs to be more programs, more services, more initiatives around financial independence and stability for Union County families, as well as a safety net with fewer holes, a safety net that can catch people before a single incident becomes a chronic, long-term challenge or problem. So that is what I have. If I can take a couple of questions before we take a break. Okay, so I guess we'll take a break. Thank you very much.
I want to thank Donna for her presentation. We're going to take a brief 3 to 5 minute break, and we're going to ask the panelists to come over and